Clearly not a memorable one, as I have absolutely no recollection of it whatsoever. Jim tells me that I was short, chubby, rosy-cheeked with a small wisp of hair on my head. It's very much a look I've tried to champion ever since. As a young man, some time in the past, Jim was never very keen on his name. James was acceptable. Jim was preferable. Jimmy was rather irritable, and Jamie was just plain unacceptable. But I believe James is the final name, and currently the 10th most popular name in the UK. Rather disappointingly, he's actually 425th most popular in France. However, what do you expect from a country that sees it utterly appropriate to name their little boys Michelle? Of course, you may not know this, but the name Nickel means brave, industrious, and intelligent, which is done. Sadly, the name James means not very, so that's... Jim's always had a quick wit. His first day at primary school teacher to ask him to name 3 animals in the jungle. Jim replied, 2 elephants and a giraffe. Later on, Jim was having a bit of trouble with his maths homework. My mother was trying to help. She said, Jim, if you have £2.50 in your left pocket and you have £3.50 in your right pocket, what do you have? Jim replied, I think I've got someone else's trousers on, Mum. On another occasion, Jim had come home with a rather bad history report. My father read this. My father said to him, Jim, I don't understand. When I was your age, I was always very good at history. To which Jim retorted, I'm not surprised, Dad, when you were my age, bugger all had happened. Now, after Jim left college, he tried his hand at several jobs, eventually entering the care industry, in which he learned his trade and in which he excels today here in Edinburgh. Jim made a life for himself these last few years in Edinburgh, and the icing on the cake for all of us, the family, was when we finally got to meet the wonderful Ollie. Charming, attractive, funny, and intelligent. Jim lacked all of these. Leading us to believe that meeting someone like Ollie would be a near impossible task. Now, I shouldn't joke too much, of course. I must say that in all the years I've known Jim, I've never heard anyone ever question his intelligence. In fact, I've never heard anyone even mention it. Jim also told me to make sure I sing his praises, mention all his good points. The trouble is I can't sing, I'm certainly not going to lie to him. Here are a few words, though. A few words and phrases that best describe Jim. Funny. Considerate. Industrious. Here you go. I'm sorry, Jim, your handwriting is shocking. I wouldn't say Jim was a sporty type when we were younger, although we were very quick, both running and at swimming. But Jim did briefly try his hand at the game of golf. Jim was 12, and I was about 8. And with another friend of ours, Jim and I cycled down to Abbey Field, where we were allowed to hit a few balls. Now, Jim hadn't had any coaching, and was simply improvising his own very unique style and stroke. Jim hit a few balls whilst I was told to stand behind him, which I did. Now, Jim has always been a kind, protective, and loving older brother. And I remember thinking these exact words as I watched the blade of a 5-iron golf club cut through the air with increasing velocity, making perfect contact with my until then impeccable and unblemished 8-year-old chin. Jim, of course, being the aforementioned loving brother, told me to get up and stop messing around. I'm not sure what first aroused Jim's suspicions that he'd actually made contact with me, perhaps it was the small flap of skin still attached to the end of his club. Perhaps, more likely, it was the face of his innocent and angelic 8-year-old brother, covered in, and dare I say, still gushing blood. It was at this point Jim, leaving me with his friend, raced back to raise the alarm. Apart from a small scar here, and the fact that I had to drink soup and very runny ready bread through a straw for over a fortnight, I am pretty much okay. To this day, Jim maintains that although I did stand behind him, as instructed, I stood in the wrong place. Of course, Jim, I could actually agree with you right now, but then, of course, we'd both be wrong. As we grew up, Jim and I, we shared a couple of bachelor pads together in Colchester. And the young man, Jim, was what you could call a non-conformist. Certainly in his dress sense, musical taste, and I always thought in his dancing style too. His dancing, I dare say, has improved, and we'll probably find out later on, I'm sure. But back then it was different, perhaps even avant-garde. It's difficult to describe. Imagine, if you will, the movements of a man who's allergic to music. He developed perhaps what I could call a kind of anaphylactic jazz freestyle. Now, in April last year, Ash and I had the pleasure of visiting Jim and Ollie up here in Edinburgh to celebrate Jim's birthday. Right back. Jim also had other ideas, and was at pains to let two girls go shopping and get me on home. It was then he told me of his intentions. He took me aside and asked me what I thought about marriage. Taken aback, I told him I was flattered. But not only were my feelings not mutual, that being brothers was probably against the law. After realising he was talking about Ollie, I thought it was probably the best idea he'd ever had. Next to that, I was taking golf. Now, before I wrote the speech, Jim did give me a list of things that I should mention in front of Ollie, which I left back in the hotel room. But I did make a copy. I'll just take a few random things I can't. Amsterdam, 94. Amsterdam, 95. Amsterdam, 96. The sheep incident, 97. The police cell. The sheep incident, 98. And Witherden. Amsterdam, 99. And finally, telecommunications advisor to the news of the world. Moving on, I know you'll be very happy there, Jim. Marriage is a wonderful thing. It teaches you loyalty, restraint, and control. It will develop in you a sense of responsibility and compromise. And so many other useless qualities you simply don't need when you're single. Gentlemen, I think you'll agree that today is also a sad day for single men everywhere, as another beautiful woman gets married and leaves the ever-shrinking list of availability behind. And similarly, ladies, I think you'll agree that today is probably passed without much of a ripple. So. Now, mostly about Jim, but Ollie, I do have one small piece of advice for you. 5 tips for a successful marriage. Firstly, it's important to have a man who has a job and helps you around the house. Secondly, it is important to have a man who can make you laugh. Thirdly, it's important to have a man you can rely on and doesn't lie to you. Fourthly, it is important to have a man that loves you and spoils you from time to time. And finally, Ollie, it's important that Jim never finds out about you 4 other men. said, my father did advise me not to go more than 4 or 5 minutes, so we're getting to the end here, guys. So, as I near the end of my speech, I'd just like to say that Jim, you're a wonderful brother, both Sheila and I. You've always been supportive, willing to help and give advice when you can. We're all very proud of what you've achieved, and personally, you're my best friend. And the funniest person I know, but well, in short, you're like a brother to me. Ollie, Jim tells me how welcome you've been made to feel by your family, and I would like to welcome you into our family. And I speak on behalf of our family when I say that we're also happy that you made Jim so happy. You're a wonderful couple, and we all love you both very much. It's time to draw my speech to a close. Before I do, a couple of mentions from those who aren't here today. Congratulations, Jim and Ollie. Have a wonderful day and many happy years ahead. See you soon. And that's from Gilly and Paul. Jim, thanks for all the weekends late in by the pool. I do hope you made the right choice. All my love, Michael Barrymore. And finally, Jim, so many happy memories over the years. All my love, don't be a stranger. And that's from Madame Nina in Amsterdam. I'm not sure I should read that. Finally, Jim and Ollie, may your marriage be modern enough to survive the times, but old-fashioned enough to last forever. Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding.